That's not me yawning at this movie. It's actually a quote from this movie. If anyone saw the cold opening. Yeah, basically. Hey everybody, this is Retrokid Reviews, and with some late breaking, I guess, in channel news, for Jurassic World, Dominion review. I actually got the blaster early, and, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more playtesting, leading up to the movie. Like I said, I promised in my, previous retro review for Jurassic Park, I did say this is going to be a double review for that and the movie itself. And even on my lowest shot, it is that hard to get the blaster in frame, so you can definitely see where I gotta be. Again, it's definitely a Adventure Force blaster. It has all the nooks and crannies that you're seeing from like AM Pro and X Pro. So again, with the full double review with that and the movie, I will try to like basically explain what they took from what blaster for this exact this blaster. So again, more on that next time. And this is my second take because this is going to be one of two retro reviews this week. The good news is that we have some spacing to talk about some stuff before Top Gun Maverick later in the month. Awesome there. But I also have to talk about the biggest elephant in the room that came out of my Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness spoilers review. Yes, there is going to be a new Avatar sequel. It's called Way of the Water. I'm probably going to be doing I think a trailer react to that along with my Avatar retro review, 12 years in the making, and yet still, I am not doing 3D TVs. Again, there is some minor jokes, more or less on the technical aspect, not so much on the plot aspect. We'll get to that when we get to that eventually. So, I basically, kind of, sort of bended my own rules when it comes to making retro reviews, especially in this particular trilogy's case. Essentially with The Lost World Jurassic Park, I do actually know more technical stuff from memory than I thought I was going to with this movie, which is actually really good. The problem is, like, this movie, like, once you figured out how to make this work, you packaged it, and now you're selling it. You're selling it. It's, again, I would love to talk about that kind of quoting, but it's more or less kind of what you thought the sequel was going to be. It was capitalizing off of the success of the original movie, and more or less, it's about kind of more or less on Crichton than it is on Spielberg. Spielberg is not really known for making sequels. Aside from the indie franchise, obviously. Well, again, we're gonna have a lot more to say, with Alan and all that with, Jurassic Park 3 next week, hopefully. So with that being said, what's there to say about a almost 25-year-old movie, out of the two? Well, a couple of things. Yeah, Malcolm doesn't really work as, like, a main series protagonist. Like, say what you will about Jeff Goldblum, he is definitely one of the highlights of that cast when it comes to the first movie. Having him for almost 2.5 hours to basically do essentially a Sci-Fi Channel original movie subplot that's all supposed to be adapted by the sequel book to one of the most then popular franchises at the time, it looked like pretty much a rush job. What I will say, the hunter in that movie, as their human villain, is actually very interesting. It's really cool, really nice, and was not the main villain at all. It was definitely Engine this time around. I do not remember that actor's name. Cast IMDb below. My apologies to the guy that the hunter character. I especially like anybody who has like DVD copies of this movie. Check out his like actual introductory scene. From like if they ever did like a second edition to this, I know, but I think if anything there should be a deleted scene that I might have found on the cards of him just doing a one-arm boxing match with like a Taurus thing. If anything, if that was gonna be like the tropiest thing for this trilogy, it would have been like, let's get a guy from some tourist trap spot somewhere in Hawaii and just see if we can like sign him up to a weird excursion, and that's kind of how it was. But it was very entertaining. It was definitely how it was. Again, my apologies to that actor's name. God rest him and all. Last time I think I remembered him was, I think, during The Town. Yeah, so retro card there. I think it was the florist in that. If those you know, you know. Anyway, trying to appease Boston people aside, what's there with the plot of the movie this time around for Lost World? Essentially, like I said, it's a rescue mission. The cast itself is actually not bad. They got people ranging from actors from Westworld to Julianne Moore to even a very early Vince Vaughn, I think, right after, I think, Swinger. So, again, you think a cast like this, like, off the back of, like, what is essentially the definitive Jurassic Park cast, especially having a legacy actor in name only. They didn't really know the terminology of that at this point. Like a returning actor, essentially. In Goldblum's case, would basically elevate like essentially decent like sequences, performance, and stuff like that. More or less, yes. Not entirely. Again, the only good highlight, I think I'm probably gonna be the only one that will defend the two T-Rexes going after the RV. Another thing, if we're also going off of what I said in my original review, sorry for the Discord notifications, my bad in advance, is that it still had a lot of bankability, like something that even like later sequels will try to do and like make as much merch as they can off of like tertiary vehicles and stuff like that. However, I was a big fan of Ingen's vehicles. Like the bad guy vehicles had a lot more to work off of this time around. Especially with the Hunter character, he was like trying to explain basically what dinosaurs was, and then he just threw the book out. I was like, the one with the big horn, just get that one. Anyway, he is probably a really good villain character. Like I said, unfortunately, it's Ingen acting like the bloodsucking lord, except if he had a conscience or whatever. Alan, sorry, yeah. Richard Attenborough and the original kids are there for like a blink if you miss it first 20 minutes of the movie. Again, it's supposed to be like a legal case kind of thing, and the explanation of Site B is a little all over the place, I will admit, even for the book itself. Again, like I said, I think out of the two books I'm willing to read of the Jurassic Park novels, Lost World is not definitely on my high priority. The thing I will also admit, there will be chapters in both books that will be used heavily later on in other sequels, like even in, I think in even in the Lost World franchises, there'll be like action sequences of those books that will be carried later on. I guess to spoil, I think the bridge sequence, I think most of the pterodactyl stuff are essentially what you will be seeing in those movies later on, as action sequences. The thing is, a lot of other things. I literally forgot, the actress who played Kelly, basically, Malcolm's kid. I had a slight crush on her, I guess, when I was a kid and stuff like that. I don't know. I thought she was cool. What isn't cool, I will admit, is the, gymnastics scene taking down, the raptor later on in, like, the ending of, I think, Act 2. Yeah, so surprisingly, all the island stuff is Acts 1 and 2, and you're probably wondering, okay, then what the hell is Act 3? San Diego. So where do we start with San Diego? Well, first off, to wrap up the whole gymnastic stuff, yes, she did good cut for the team, but to me, gymnasting a rider kicking into an okay design puppeteering of Raptors this time around, yeah, you could tell they were cheaping out there, more or less. CG is still fine. Again, this is, Jurassic Park's groundbreaking CG at the time. None of it actually feels that dated, if you could believe that. Again, it's still directed by Steven Spielberg, and you can tell in, like, even in Sentai terms, like, Go Kaiser going into Go Busters for my Tokyo audience, that is, like, any anniversary team after a Sentai is, like, the hard act to follow. I think the more obvious example in 90s terms, is, like, Jetman was, like, the best team at the time, and then what ended up being Mighty Morphin here in the States, Zoo Ranger, was the hard act to follow, but then again, it gave us an entire, 30-year franchise, and Jetman is awesome because it's Jetman. So, again, your mileage may vary how this is terminology-wise going into Jurassic Park, let alone Lost World. Yeah, ultimately, in Crichton's case in the novel, from what I've heard so far, is basically a cash grab. Like, you can definitely tell, okay, I need to change literally everything and make it more like the movie. Again, I have not read the book. There may be, I think, a Cinefix book, basically, Lost in Adaptation, not Lost in Adaptation. I forgot the terminology for that review series. Card there in case I find it. So yeah, lastly, with the San Diego sequences, it looked good at the time when I was a kid. Now, had I sat through the back half of that movie, I don't know, maybe it's a little dated. I think the only thing I would agree, honestly, with that would be dated is Japanese tourists just, like, freaking out thinking, like, it's Godzilla again. Again, it's obviously dated and obviously, shitty, to this day, so, another thing, I think when I was doing my Lost World review card to that, and I was trying to figure out which type of sequel was it going to be bad sequel-wise. Is it going to be very preachy at the end, kind of like Lost World is here? Or is it going to be full-blown Alan, all the crazy isms that was happening with Jurassic Park 3? No. In that particular case, it's a bit of both, but not enough. Hopefully Dominion just says, screw it, let's just go full Fast and the Furious, like insane fanfic Furious or whatever. Another thing I forgot to mention in my Jurassic Park review, I think it's the last thing I'm going to mention. A lot of people have speculated that the kid that got bullied a little bit by Alan before they go to the island might be a long speculated Owen Grady when he was a kid. It holds a little bit of weight. I mean, for those who remember Chris Pratt during, like, I don't know, Parks and Rec, he was a big guy before he, like, dropped away to do Guardians and a lot of other action franchises. I think he's doing, like, another one for, like, Amazon. Yeah, guy doesn't sleep on those kind of projects, apparently, these days, but apparently will sort of show up for Guardians. Again, I'm not hot taking, I just hope he's okay. Mentally, not physically. Like, he could definitely show up to that. I'll admit. So, I don't know. Ultimately, if I had to review this back then, I'd say be a rental. Like, if you're interested in the franchise, it's worth a pickup. If you saw or bought any of the merch when you were a kid like me, it was okay. Like I said, the trucks and Jeeps are fine. They're a hard act from like the crazy Ford Escape modifiers or whatever the actual brand names were back then. And I think there were even different car brands even in Crichton's books. I think it was heavily specific of like different brand names and stuff like that. But again, it was Steven and he had a lot of Jeeps. In this particular case, I think the Lost World of vehicles is kind of like exactly what Crichton was asking in the novels. Again, I could be wrong there. I'm not much of a merch guy there, even though I specifically review merch like this for a living. Yes. Again, we'll get to that blaster later down the road. Should you see this? Yes and no. Again, there are action sequences and there are stuff that does definitely carry the movie. If I had time, I would probably talk about how, like, basically the Raptors are literally the one of, like, many good action sequences. I know everyone's heavily, like, talked about how, like, the early Jeep scenes were, like, kind of meh, and, like, basically it being, like, a parental film for, like, basically the T-Rexes just to get their kid back at all costs. If you're going to the T-Rex theory of it, yeah, more or less, but I don't know, ultimately, it just feels like what a lot of sequels were back in those days was sequel to the movie. Let's capitalize on what we got, see what we can use the best scenes of that movie and just, like, take all new problems, in this case, all new lessons to learn from that said thing. Ultimately, I think another thing I think I've noticed when comparing this to Fallen Kingdom is that Attenborough, much like Jeff Goldblum will be doing in that sequel, basically bookend the movie, because that's basically what he did. He was in Act 1 and then shows up to Act 3, like, literally 5 minutes before you, like, close credits to just explain how you gotta let them stay in the island, let them be, don't bring them into the States, like, at all. It was that kind of messaging, essentially, back then. Nowadays, I don't know, with Lost World, I might have to reevaluate it before going into Dominion next month, so again, take that as you will. So with that all being said, a very confused and very having to scramble this because I now have to actually talk about Avatar. Again, it's one of those sequels you never thought would actually happen, but yet here we are. This is Retrokid Reviews, hoping you learned anything out of this. I know this is sounding a little more sporadic than even my full spoilers review of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Speaking of, end card here to that particular review. Sure, always to sub to the channel, notification bell down below for more Jurassic Park related stuff, especially when it comes to the new Dominion blaster that I got in time for the double review next month. Obviously, final hand here to see the shorts playlist of my non-spoilers review of Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, should you just want to see that leading up to it. Again, it won a lot of money here in the States. I think the only big update is that I got, like, 180 plus mil here in the States and 450 total. So I was right about that in the full spoilers review. So with that all being said, I am Retrokid Reviews, and yeah, it turns out Eli Roth was an extra in that opening sequence. Wild, right? Yeah, that was really wild. And Sarah, it wasn't that quotable. You can tell.